Here, the famous Vulcan howl from the 4 Rolls-Royce Bristol Olympus engines. Vulcan probably represents the very best imaginative thinking out of the box virtues of British aeronautical design and engineering. She probably represents the very best of the great British people. She's got on the nose, she bears the title of even when she first appeared at Farnborough in the early 1950s, she's as manoeuvrable as a fighter, despite being a large bomber capable of carrying 21,000 pounds of weaponry in the bomb bay, which we shall see earlier. And of course, in the early days at the Farnborough Air Show, the great test pilot Rowley Fulk did actually roll her as part of his display. But eventually they decided that wasn't quite appropriate. She could still roll these days, she's perfectly capable of it, but we're not allowed to do it by regulation. But you will see some quite steep turns during this display today. She's going to come flying past in a moment at about, well, 300 knots, 345 miles an hour. Top speed was 640 miles an hour, not quite the speed of sound, about Mach 0.97. So the extraordinary thing is, the shape that was to become this magnificent aircraft was first drawn on a scruffy piece of paper in 1946 by the same man who designed the fantastic Lancaster bomber. And the really extraordinary thing is when you picture the Lancaster bomber, which is a sort of typical Second World War shape, that there is only 11 years between these two aircraft. Lancaster first flew in 1941 and Vulcan flew in 1952. So they look as if they come from different centuries, really. Roy Chadwick was the man who designed this. He died in 1947, sad to say, in a crash, so he never saw his brilliant design fly, and nor did he see it become the first successful operational delta-winged aircraft in the world. So the RAF got its first Vulcan in 1956, and with its contemporary bombers, the Valiant and the Victor, it had been designed to carry the British nuclear deterrent during the Cold War. And indeed, this year, 2014, it's 25 years since the fall of the Berlin Wall and the collapse of European communist regimes, which did eventually end the Cold War. Now, as Martin Withers brings XH558, that's our number, XH558, back towards us, he's going to turn, you can see the power coming on those engines, and he's going to do a spiral climb. On the aircraft at the moment, you'll see the air brake sticking out at the top of the wing and beneath the wing as well, and the undercarriage is coming down, 18 wheels of the undercarriage. He isn't going to land just yet though. He'll descend as if he were going to land and then come past us, cleaning up, as they say in the trade, getting the undercarriage and the flaps up. Back to the history books, in the mid-60s, Vulcans had handed over their awesome responsibility of carrying the nuclear deterrent to the Royal Navy, which still has it to this day. They became instead tactical low-level conventional bombers, and instead of being bright white, anti-flash white for the nuclear role, they got this new camouflage colour. But of course, in 1982, nearly at the end of her operational career and supported by 11 victors, Vulcan 607 hit the centre line of the Port Stanley runway in the Falkland Islands with one bomb and the edge with another, making the runway unusable for Argentine fast jets. It was the longest bombing raid in history. About 7,700 miles round trip, which is about the same distance as from here to Bali in one hop. And it took no less than 18 air-to-air refuelings. And of course the man in charge was the man who's flying 558 today. Distinguished Flying Cross. He was awarded that after the raid on the Falkland Islands. And this aircraft, this particular aircraft, this was the first B2 version, first flew in 1960, so she's 54 years old this year. Now if she comes towards us, keep your eyes on the underside of the aircraft. I expect to see the bomb bay open, and you'll see how big that bomb bay is that's set to carry those 21 1,000-pound bombs all the way to the Falkland Islands. There is the bomb bay, of course, the very heart of a bomber. That's what the aeroplane is all about. Everything around it is designed to carry that enormous load to the target. In fact, in the bomb bay these days are the names of people who've contributed significantly to the £20 million it's cost so far to get this aeroplane from her retirement from the Royal Air Force to the magnificent state she's in today. Because it may seem obvious, but she's not funded by the government, she doesn't belong to the Royal Air Force. And when the RAF retired her in 1993, she was destined for the scrap heap, or maybe a place in a museum. But two very important people, David Walton came along and bought this aircraft, which had been the RAF's display aircraft, and an awful lot of spares, and Dr. Robert Fleming, who was eventually the man who set up the Vulcan to the Sky Trust. Bomb bay doors are closing as she goes past us. As I was saying, it's cost £20 million, including £2.7 million in an unprecedented heritage lottery grant. There's been lots of support from industry, from companies, individual big donors like Sir Jack Hayward and Eddie Forrester of Aerobytes, and from the Civil Aviation Authority, also AD Holdings, Airbus, BAE Systems, Beagle Technology, Cranfield Aerospace, Goodrich, Kearsley Airways, Meggitt, Messier Doughty, Rolls-Royce and Serco. But most of the money has come from you. Thank you so much for showing how much you really love this aeroplane. I was saying earlier, we've just had some very good news this week from the Farnborough Air Show, where they polled 16 and a bit thousand Facebook followers as to what was their favourite aeroplane at the Farnborough Air Show. Second was the Red Arrows, first was this XH558. Last year was going to be her last season, because there was a very important modification modification to be done to the wing to improve the fatigue life. All Vulcans were due to have that modification, but none had lasted long enough to need it. So there wasn't the technology available to manufacture it. There were no drawings. Cranfield University did a wonderful job of reverse engineering, and Beagle Technology made the patches and everything, and the leading edge of the wing was successfully modified. She's now good till the end of 2015, we hope, and it is at that stage, it's probably the engine life that is going to cause her to finish, but that is not for sure. She may go on after 2015. See now, the wheels have come down, all 18 wheels, and she'll be landing off this approach. I think Martin will probably not elect to use the braking parachute. It's rather a shame because it's a very lovely thing to see, but it's rather expensive. It costs a couple of grand every time we use it. So he'll just let the aircraft float down the runway with the nose held high in the air and the oncoming airflow slowing the aircraft down with that enormous, great, well, bigger than barn doors Delta wings. Although, interestingly, she's not quite as big as you might think. She's about the same size in length and wingspan as a small Airbus airliner, an A318. 111-foot wingspan, that's as long as an A318. 105 foot long, the Airbus is, it has 103 foot of wingspan. So, of course, she looks entirely different because she's not a cruciform shape like most aircraft are. She has that Delta shape, and she was, of course, as I was saying, the first operational Delta wing to fly in the world. So, just coming in to touchdown, see the air brakes on the top and underneath the wings there. 16 wheels down, and the braking chute has appeared. There it is.